a static site, you could just spin up a WordPress instance and use that just to authenticate to your static site. It would probably be an overuse of it. But.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to. One of the problems I found with like building tools for micropub is that authentication stuff. So usually, like locally, I just like say authenticate true or whatever, like but I wanted to build like a local. Implement that in my CMS that locally it's easy to.
You're using Craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was much scarier to think about implementing than it was, and the nice thing is there are people in the community who are willing to put up with me and check it. Because the thing that I was really fearful of, and I think I said it in Baltimore because and you were there for that, was since it's a WordPress plugin, I could make potentially hundreds of people's sites hackable, and so I really wanted some.
So you just wanted a second set of eyes on it.
I wanted as many eyes as were willing to put their eyes on it, because I was just convinced that if I didn't do that, then something might happen. And as of now, assuming that there is a way to exploit that plugin, it's installed by over 300 people. So if there is a problem with the plugin, then over 300 people are now at risk.
Yeah.
And that was worrisome enough for me to really want help.
See, that's why I'm a PHP novice. I know just enough to like get by, and so I can publish my site using micropub with the plugin I wrote, but it always worries me to like publish it because I don't want to be responsible for everybody else.
Well, that's sort of the thing. And the only way that I got reasonably good at writing these things is just writing them. So doing it works surprisingly well for some.
Yeah.
So I started in the community in 2014, and while I did take computer science classes, I'm not a programmer by trade, and I didn't do very much with it before that. So I taught myself how to do all this stuff. And started out with, of course, fun and exciting projects like building indie endpoints, as opposed to what most people do, which is Hello World.
Yeah, well, I'm in like the same bit. My background's graphic design, but I've been a web developer for forever.
But the nice thing is that you show up in the chat room, you show up at one of these events, and somebody will stop what they're doing and help you.
Yeah.
And there's not I went to WordCamp, which is the WordPress, and it's not really that way.
Oh, really?
Well, they have their contributors day. So contributors day were a bunch of people in a room, and if you think that there would be people around, helping and encouraging you, but it was just like, oh, we all got together in the same room, and as if we might as well have been at home. So I attended one, and I never attended one again. So I would like it if it was more like this, where it was more of a collaborative environment. Even though people are working on projects, they're all sharing, they're all interacting. Otherwise, why are you in the same room?
Yeah.
It's just.
It occurred to me in the last. Do we need to get going?
We are. Yeah, I think we are. Yeah.
We're coming on that time. Yeah.
No, it started 5 minutes ago.
Did it?
Yeah, 15:40.
Oh, we didn't get anybody on it. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh well.
This was your session, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you may begin. We will personally log.
Okay. Do you have an Ether pad?
Yeah, it's personal logging. So etherpad.indieweb.org/personal logging, all one word.
Okay.
Yeah, what were your initial thoughts on that?
All right. Well, so my interest, I mentioned earlier in the location talk that I have a lot of like siloed data that I track, and so I'm interested in putting it all in one place that's under my control, and then doing things like the ultimate end goal for me is like a visualization of my year's activity. And then since it's on the web, instead of being like a static annual report, you can also filter it down to like on this day, see, not that it's useful, but like what did you do this day last year and so on. And so I'm interested in like how that fits in the indie web, like what tools or post formats fit in with things like, there's check entries, but then are there things for like tracking books or movies and things like that?
This experimental service called IndieBookClub.biz, that's something I created, that is sort of.
Is it really not biz?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome.
It was a joke. We were at Baltimore, and our friend Marty, who's not here, unfortunately, said that I'll be more interested in these read posts that people are working on. People are kind of organized. I'll be more interested in that. And somebody has like some aggregator, like Indie Book Club, not biz. So like, sure, I'll get that. So we,
That's as you may notice from some of the context, a lot of things in this community start out as a offhand comment that was not meant seriously, and turns into something.
nerd types.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are definitely like they're pretty experimental, but there's posts for like watching, listening, reading. I think the experimental nature is really kind of in like what does the micro formats around those look like. So like, yeah, with Indie Book Club, I'm publishing some micro formats, but it's probably not what it's going to end up as. So
There's most people publishing watch posts or videos too,
Okay.
and also listens for podcasts.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I noticed earlier on CleverDevil.io, he tracks his podcast listening. I thought that's really cool. But are these things generally manual of like, I listen to this thing and now I log it?
I think he found a way to automate it.
He's doing his from his podcast app history, Overcast.
Overcast, yeah.
Interesting. I have Overcast, but I didn't know that you
They have an OPML file. So they've got two of them actually. One is I think like, well, that's a regular like here's all your everything you're subscribed to. But then there's one like here's all your activity passive,
that's awesome.
and they generate it. So I don't know how frequently, not very frequently.
Mhm.
So yeah, they're like parsing it like daily, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in doing that for my YouTube watch history now too,
Mhm.
although I don't know how to make it public.
Mhm.
But I started recently watching more stuff on YouTube, and where I didn't really before. So I'd kind of be interested in that. I know they have an API for it. So.
And at once, it's just like everything else with YouTube. It's annoying.
Yes.
So yeah, so I use a number of your tools, like I mentioned earlier today. And you do place tracking through on your Swarm. Is that
I do a couple of things for
Okay.
locations, yeah. I do use Swarm because Foursquare is the best venues.
Mhm.
And then when your Swarm pushes those to my website. But then totally separately from that, I run Overland
Mhm.
for GPS.
And I run that also,
Cool.
but I haven't figured out. So like, but that doesn't automatically track places, right?
No venues.
Okay. Yeah. So then you're querying that. So if you go to post something, then you can see historically I was at this location and attach like geo data to a post.
Yeah, so the GPS data I use for setting the city name on my posts, you can see it. So every post gets the actual location of where I was when I posted that, which I then enrich with the city name and weather information.
So where were you July 18, 2010?
I could tell you that. But the other thing that GPS data gives me, which I think is actually probably more relevant to a bunch more people, not everyone wants the full historical data, but setting the time zone of your post so that the time zone is always based on where you actually are and not just like your server time zone.
Mhm.
And then just having the current, just only recording the current location. You can do all that kind of stuff with it, without having to worry about storing all of the data.
Mhm.
Because storing all the data is not necessarily easy and also not necessarily useful for everybody.
Mhm.
And I have a strange thing with that. The posts that come in from MicroPub, with the exception of one service, all seem to adjust for time zone, which is how I coded it. There's something different about Own Your Swarm where it is coming in always in server time zone. And I have not been able to figure out what the difference is, but I will one of these days.
So do any of y'all log on your personal site? Like,
I don't do location data yet. I still use just Swarm, the app. So
And
I do-
locations.
I do books because I do the Indie Book Club thing. So and that's really just like maintaining a list of books that I want to read, currently reading, or finished reading. So it's a very, very minimal Goodreads, basically.
do you update your previous, like your want to read list and move it to
So
Reddit?
they're individual posts, so no. but so like I will have a post like this is when I added it to my to read list, you know, and then this is when I started reading it. This is when I finished. So it'd be like 3 posts.
Okay.
Yeah, or more. I mean, I guess I could do multiple like I'm currently reading this, but I pretty much just do it when I start them.
Okay.
Well, you had that long discussion about it. Do you want to update the original post when you finish, or do you want?
That's actually been a request. Like, yeah.
No, I'm saying I know you've gone
I've
back
kind of
and
just
forth on
punted on it just because separate posts is easiest right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once you finished it, you want to talk about what you thought, whereas starting it is you want to start a discussion with other people. The idea of a book club, which is what you're calling it, is that you're reading with other people.
Oh. See, I honestly haven't even dug into the name that much.
No, I'm saying,
It's just a domain.
No, I'm saying I thought that was sort of the idea, that you want it, that you're reading a book, you want to tell people that you are reading a book as opposed
Yes.
to finish it because you want to encourage conversation around it, which is, I thought that was a little book club idea.
No.
Not
I've not
literally all reading
ever,
at the same time.
conversation is always good. I've not explicitly thought that as part of like the reasoning for it. For me, it's like, I really like, Goodreads has encouraged me to read more by keeping track of books I want to read. And I also like just the progress thing, like, oh wow, I'm like 50% done, you know, or so over the years, Goodreads has made me read more, and I want to keep doing that, but own more of that. So the simplest first step is keeping track of what I want to read, reading
And what you have read, and
Right.
what you.
There's conversation around it, bonus, but yeah.
I like conversation, so that tends to be, while I do post a lot of things just for my own tracking,
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of sharing something with somebody who I can have a back and forth conversation with.
Chris in the Etherpad commented, like, why not do a collection post based on the book title? Which, yeah, that's interesting. Indie Book Club does actually have an ISBN view, so you can, but I don't even know if anybody's even, very few people have probably added the same books, honestly. There's not that large of a data set yet.
Well,
But the idea is like you could find out like, oh, this is everybody else who's made a post about this book.
yeah, but you also have ISBN numbers have the slight variance for different formats.
I
I
normalize
assume
them.
you're not storing that part of it.
I normalize them. So I use them 13.
That helps.
What kind of things do you log on your? Or is it all public on your site?
At the moment, yes, only because some of the stuff that I want to hide, I haven't written the hiding function. Therefore, I'm not storing it because it can't be done.
I see what you're saying. So you're not logging it currently. Some things that you would like to.
Well, no. Since I'm running WordPress, I do have the opportunity to do private posts.
Mm-hmm.
But the logic behind, other than me manually marking everything as private, which would annoy me, I need something that's a little more automated that says if it's this. So that's actually something I was building now, where if I post something and I want to note the location, it will automatically blanket if I'm at home.
Mm.
And I'm still a few more steps from testing that. For the sake of this weekend, the hotel down the street is now home, so I can test this while I'm here.
Nice.
Actually, I think I wrote it as hotel. It's the same idea.
Hotel.
It'll replace any time that I'm within, I think it's 150 meters of the hotel. It will just replace it with the word hotel and blank everything else out.
Oh, cool.
So no map, no actual coordinates, just hotel. If it works.
Are there tools? So I guess Known. I'm not too familiar with Known. I heard it come up a number of times today. Does that support the multiple post types or things? So like you'll have your bookmark posts.
Yeah,
like,
that's what Clever Devil uses now.
Yeah.
So it has a handful of post types built in, but then there's also like, it's all based on like a modular system. So you can create a plugin essentially that makes a new post type.
Okay.
So some people have written extensions for it to support.
I think listen and watch or extensions.
Okay.
But
Or chickens.
it's the most naturally IndieWeb package you could probably install.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the other systems that are CMSs have plugins that plug into it that make it more IndieWeb friendly. No one started out as an IndieWeb friendly system. So the basic IndieWeb structure is there.
Okay.
The only thing, is that you have to install it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're giving out known accounts anymore.
Yeah, they're not doing anything on it. Yeah.
So you'd have to run your own server.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it is probably the most turnkey solution if you can install it.
Yeah.
Whereas after that, if you want somebody else to do all the work, probably the next one up is micro.blog, although it has limitations as well. It's not extensible.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you bug mant it, which is my philosophy for whenever I want micro.blog.
He's pretty regular in the community, though, so if you're in the chat, you just...
Yeah.
Well, I tried to talk him into something earlier.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, so like all the interest now in things like Gatsby and stuff, this kind of like goes away from blogging, but that
What's Gatsby?
It's a React like static site builder that implements a bunch of best practices like lazy loading and things like that. So you get like really fast time to first byte and and all this stuff. But I was thinking, and it has like a GraphQL component, I believe. So like you can feed different data sources into your build. So it's like thinking for ease of use, you could take like a micropub or micro.blog account and like just publish all your stuff there, but then create a totally separate site that's using all your feeds from micro.blog to create like a static site elsewhere. And it only makes sense if you want to have like control over design and everything, which you just rolled out new templating stuff anyway on that site. So less relevant now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely one of my things with all the tools around the IndieWeb stuff is that I get bogged down in like making my site support these things instead of like publishing. So so I have a bunch of location stuff on the back end that I haven't made public, but it's just like kind of like chilling on the database until I come up with all the UI and stuff around it.
Mine is in a file. So I have back location data. I just do not have it on my site.
Mm-hmm.
But I do it.
Yeah, one of the challenges is there's so much data involved in location that to store it historically, it's like you're talking about like gigs of data and everything that if you put it into a database,
Which one?
Video went out?
Yeah.
We needed it. We
stopped the video.
There's not enough bandwidth to do both, apparently. The Wi-Fi is terrible.
What's the guest Wi-Fi? I think last time we used we put them on the internal networks.
I don't remember.
I vaguely remember, but not enough to remember the details. The thing is, I could go do something with that data, but it's the same problem. There's just so much of it, and if I'm not going to build something that will hide what I want to hide and show what I want to show, then I don't want people to know everywhere I've been for the last decade.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So I think when I look at building it, it's more of like something that's visible to me through my website, like through login, and then with the option of marking, so everything's private by default, and then make stuff public on a case-by-case basis.
Well, I keep thinking of building Compass, not Compass itself, but a similar tool that allows me to store and just query it back. So I tried this for a while, and I started a series where I would go back to an event that occurred before I started regularly blogging and try to actually blog about it and past date it back to that date using all the materials that I had. And I keep boxes of physical stuff that I'd like to digitize and bring into my website. So I did 2 chapters of recounting the events of March of 1999 into April. And I probably should finish that project because I have written notes of exactly what happened during a trip that I took during that period.
Oh, cool.
And I was copying it in verbatim and then writing my modern observations as editor's notes. So it was me of 1999 being, where me of 2014 commenting on it. I should finish that project. That notebook's been sitting on my desk for 5 years now.
Yeah. I've run Last Night FM, probably since like 2004 or something. But that's another thing I need to connect to my site to pull in.
That one's a big one for me because I haven't actually decided how I want to represent that on my site. My first thought was, every listen will be a post. And the volume, because when you listen to music, the songs are like 3 to 5 minutes long.
Right.
You'd end up with hundreds of posts very quickly. And it would be just super noisy mixed in with the rest of my posts.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to do it that way.
What about a daily?
So my entire site is based around the idea of there's a post made at this time, and then it gets put in lists. So I don't have a concept of how to structure data in a way that is not that.
Mhm.
So listens for my Last.fm history, as well as steps from Fitbit, both have this problem. Because again, I can't. So every step has a timestamp. I'm not going to put every step as a post on my website. And but the other way of doing it would be like, do I do a summary of every hour? Do I do like, I don't know, right? And then the other trick is, I travel so much, I'm hopping time zones, which means the end of my day is, my days are not 24 hours long. My days are sometimes 23 or 22 or 27, depending on which way I'm going. So what is my daily summary?
Oh yeah.
Where do I grab the data from, right?
Yeah.
So these are all these things that I haven't like figured out how I want to handle. And then if I am doing daily summaries, is it at like, do they show up in the stream of just like my general posts, or does it only show up on the daily permalinks? How do I put that in my monthly views? And I just have no idea how I want to handle this yet.
Yeah, it's interesting from that standpoint because there's so much stuff that we're collecting that's not interesting to like necessarily anybody else.
Also that.
To like, how do you maybe?
I don't know. I get a kick out of your fire hose, but it's more me getting a kick out of it on an irregular basis. If I consumed it daily, then I think I would get tired of how many mimosas Aaron had today, or how many cups of coffee has Aaron had today.
So many.
We're talking every day.
Well, here's a good question though: has any silo platform done that or done it well? And the only example I can think of is Facebook, that did a lot of like super low friction things like Last.fm, but they would post them into like kind of little small recent updates off to the side that were kind of given a second class citizen status versus the first class citizen, like, wall stream feed that they did. And that's the only system I am aware of that's even tried to do or show that data.
You could hide them and then do an automatic collection post at the end of the day.
Or the only other person I know who's kind of done it or has an example is Ryan Barrett has kind of a main feed of stuff that he thinks people might want to see. That's usually the bigger articles and notes and maybe photos. And then he's got all the other stuff, but you have to go to a particular archive page to actually see all the other bookmarks and the cruft that most people aren't going to be directly interested in a sense. Which is kind of another way to solve that problem is you put it there. It's just, where do you choose to actually display it?
Yeah, it'd be nice, I guess, if so like they have the readers like Fever and things like that. They used to assign like a hot I forget what they call it, but basically like it'd be good about surfacing content from somebody that only posts like once a month. They would put it into a separate feed. So you don't like miss their one post that they post a month. Where if the reader recognizes that this is like a fire hose, it could segment those posts out of like the main feed or something.
Yeah.
Is that something that Micro Sub supports?
Well, I mean, so Micro Sub is just the part that
scrapes.
No, it's actually the other side. It's just the part that lets apps get data from a server to show posts. What that data is totally up to the Microsoft server, and it's not part of the spec. So the server can decide how to gather posts however it wants, and then expose those posts to the readers. So like right now, most of them are working the same way, which is there's like, you follow a feed, there are individual posts, those get combined together into a channel, and all those show up in a reader. But I've been really interested in starting to experiment with some alternate methods of gathering those posts that are not just what's the order of the posts they've been posted in. So I want to make like sort of magic channels that like are not don't represent time ordered feed, but like I want a channel that is where I actually can't control what's in it because my server is putting stuff into it based on other things. So like Seb started experimenting with this last year, where he made a special channel that So of everybody he follows, his server would find the like posts, favorite posts, and then go and fetch those posts. And if there were multiple people who had favorited a post, the post being favorited would be one of the things in the feed.
Mm.
And the cool thing is that server can just do that, and it'll show up in every reader because the readers don't care how the data came there. All the readers see is that there's a post here.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So like totally like doing that sort of aggregate stuff of the server recognizes that there's like someone's posting 100 of songs in a row. It could, instead of exposing each one individually, roll them up into one post, which then is displayed in the reader.
Yeah.
So you can totally do that kind of stuff.
Is that server like across everyone using it, or is it like across your friends? Like
it'd be up to your server. Like it's something that your Microsoft server would do, however it wanted to. The cool thing about the way that the spec is written is that the spec doesn't care what the server is doing because it doesn't need to in order for the apps to show the data. And everybody can have.
We're still in early days, so most people are just trying to get it to display anything.
Yes.
At the point at which they can get to that level of finesse. You're on level 2. So.
Yeah.
Somebody should do a session on that.
I think it might be the next session. Well,
that's more.
That's
more a client server view from the looks of the description.
The next session.
Yeah, it's more client.
It'll be more basic than that. Yeah. But yeah, that'd be fun. That's fun stuff. I actually still need to get more of my stuff in shape in order to be able to experiment with that stuff better.
What shape, man?
Like I have. I guess I don't know what I'm stuck on before I feel like I'm ready to experiment with that. I think I need to knock out a couple of bugs first in Aperture and Monocle and kind of just generally. It's been a while since I've done any work on them because it works well. It works mostly well enough for what I'm doing with it right now. But actually, I know one of the things I want to fix before that is I have a lot of. I've added a bunch of different versions of feeds where I end up actually seeing the same posts in multiple channels because one channel is showing me Twitter searches, another channel is showing me someone's actual blog posts.
Oh yeah.
So if somebody writes a post about the IndieWeb, it shows up in like 3 places right now, and I have to like clear it out 3 times because one of them's on Twitter, one's on their blog, and I need to like, first of all, just reorganize my own channels, but then secondly, figure out better deduping on that content also, so that I'm seeing less duplicate information.
I had that same. So I had my micro blog feed in Feedbin, and then same problem where like I had to unsubscribe because I followed a lot of those people's blogs, and then I'm just seeing everything.
Exactly. Yeah, micro.blog. I have a channel for micro.blog as well, and it's the exact same thing of like people who have a micro.blog account and their own blog and tweet. I'm seeing their posts 3 times from 3 different sources, and I need to figure out how to merge those so that
please write about it because I've been annoyed by that on other fronts for a while.
Or if all the services are using syndication properly, you can use that as a filter.
That would hopefully,
but not all are. Twitter obviously doesn't ever.
Microblog using syndication?
No, because it's got the interesting problem of because it's a static site build and pulling in sometimes external content. It doesn't necessarily. It can't tell your WordPress site what the micro.blog URL is until it exists in the WordPress site and is then pulled into micro.blog. So you have to go back and like update your WordPress site, but then it's like a chicken and egg problem in 2 different directions. So it's like
it'd be interesting if they could at least pull in the syndicated from. So like the microblog feed could include that, so that you could.
Yes, the if you're not hosting on micro.blog, at least micro.blog could tell you where it got the content from. Which, I mean, I guess it does because the URL of the micro.blog post is the canonical post. So like on my micro.blog page, the URL, the timestamp, links to my site.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it is doing that.
But where do you find the micro.blog URL for that?
Right, you don't. That's the other problem.
So I can't link in both directions.
Which is also a problem when I want to go and reply to somebody from my reader to a micro.blog post. I can't find a micro.blog conversation because the URL is just their site, and their site doesn't link to micro.blog.
Wait, so they're not at, sorry, I didn't
There's
follow
no, you can't do it by rel.me?
Well, no, it's really confusing. So, like, Brent Simmons
Mhm.
has a blog, and he also has a micro.blog account, and I follow his feed. His posts show up in my reader. When I click on them, I go to his website. His website does not link to the micro.blog conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see the micro.blog comments on his
Yeah,
post.
unless he's got backfeed or a web mention and is getting comments, and then you can see comments that are marked up potentially with this came from micro.blog.
Right, because most of the micro.blog hosted sites don't display web mentions on the site.
Mhm.
So there's no link in that direction. And the reason there's no link is because it can't. This is a totally different discussion, but it's like it doesn't know the micro.blog URL at the time that it's putting it on your site, so it can't put it in there.
Mhm.
Anyway, I've talked to Manton about this a couple times, but there isn't an obvious answer.
Well, if he's got web mentions set up, he should be able to take incoming posts and then send a web mention back essentially as a confirmation that the thing was received and posted on micro.blog. And then that would give the original a link to here's where it actually is and lives, and then go from there. That's a possibility.
I should try to talk to him about this tomorrow and see if we can move with the
I tried to talk to him about it today, about talking to him about it tomorrow. So maybe take the left side of him, I'll take the right side, and we'll double team him.
I have a morning session fixing micro.blog.
Yeah.
Well, I've even gone through, and it's kind of a pain in the neck, but stuff that I syndicate across through RSS, you can dig around and find a permalink on micro.blog to display as, but it's that problem too that you don't know it until after it's already been posted.
I want to try to talk him into web mention based syndication, the sort of bridgey type. I know it's old school, but it would work as an alternative to having him scrape the feeds. So every time that you choose to, you send a web mention to his endpoint saying that that there's a new post that you want to see.
Oh, there's an endpoint to tell it to crawl your feed.
Yeah, but I don't want to crawl the feed. I want it to specifically just say crawl this post.
So you can choose which posts show up on micro.blog and instead of all of them?
That's would also be. But also, right now, the way that Bridgie and the other sites that do it, they return the URL.
Yeah.
The hidden one that you look for.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that covers the issue too, if you do that of the reply portion, because I've just turned replies off going. So if I do it, I have to do it, or presently I do it super manually if I do that. Because there's no easy way to reply on my site, have it show up quickly and easily as a reply there within a thread, another part of a threaded conversation, which is, crazy annoying. So I just turned off replies and either don't do them or cheat a little occasionally.
That's why I never answered Jean McDonald when she asked me a question.
Anyway, we got way off topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the session about?
Personal logging.
Well, what else can we log?
Well,
We've talked about
you log drinks.
Yeah, I log what I eat and drink.
So how are you? Is there anything that corresponds to in MicroPub, Indie? What's
Yeah, so I made up a post type for eating and drinking.
Okay.
And I use a MicroPub app called Teacup, which is how I enter that data.
And that's your own. So you have is that an app you built?
It's just a web app. Yeah, it's a website.
Okay.
But anybody can use it if you sign in
Did
through.
you ever find a replacement for Pebble?
No, I haven't tried on my new Fitbit yet. This can run apps now, but yeah. So that's it's a MicroPub app. So just like Quill or any other MicroPub app, you go sign in, and then it ends up getting an access token to be able to post to your site, and then it's just built so that it's like a shortcut it keeps track of the most used things because anyway. So
He drinks a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's per user that you're tracking most used things, or?
Yeah, it's per
Okay.
user. And actually, it was also by location. So
Oh, cool.
the menu option that pops up depends on where I am.
Mhm.
So like if I'm home, tacos the first on the list. If I'm out here, well, tacos is still
Tacos in Austin,
first on the list.
yeah.
But if I'm in Europe, tacos are not on the list at
Yeah,
all because
just
there are no
pretzels
tacos there.
and sausage.
Yeah.
Clearly, you need to talk.
This
to
is
people
why I
in
don't go
Germany
to
about their
IndieWebCamp
taco
Berlin.
No
Although I'm
tacos.
not sure
tacos.
I'd want to go to a German taco stand.
No,
That
you
just
don't.
sounds-
You
Yeah.
really don't.
it just sounds bad.
So in general, so in general, there's still a lot of silos for tracking everything, but the ideal is that you can publish it from that to your site, and then you set up a different post type and display it however you want.
Yeah. So there's for Own Your Swarm, for Swarm, I do intentionally want to use the Swarm app for many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Own Your Swarm, which then pushes that onto my website. But some things I don't want to use, I don't even care about using a silo for. So like Teacup, it's not a silo, it's just a client to post data on your site.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's like a different way of doing that. And that's like, I don't care about using any of the apps that exist and silos that exist for food tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I tried to solve this problem briefly when I wanted to do a food diary for dietary purposes, which was not a public thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is caloric, protein, carbohydrate data. That's a big pain in the neck.
Oh yeah, to get for each. Yeah.
Well, it's not like I eat so many varying different items. Like you, I could have a preset for, well, not tacos, but for my equivalent of the taco in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, that's, again, a lot of data to store. And if the goal is to figure out, well, how many calories, carbohydrates, and what have you are you eating, because you're trying to be better at it, back to there may be an app that I can just take that data from rather than.
Yeah, I find, and that's kind of how I like to approach, because there's, like somebody mentioned earlier, like Instagram is a great app for posting photos and editing them and all that. It's just great to have a copy of it once you post it. So like you get instantly, anytime it goes away, you still have a copy of all that. So if you're tracking like Untapped or something and all the beer you drink, it'd be nice to just pull that in. And what I found is like if they expose like JSON, it's nice. You can just like set up your website and set up a post type or whatever to download that. But
I know somebody did that because somebody asked me for an Untapped.
Islands in the Internet.
Yeah,
Kurt, yeah. I think he's
Yeah.
folded in by the RSS feed.
Yeah,
Okay.
he asked me to find him a Untapped icon. So I arranged for the icon to be delivered because I do all the syndication icons on WordPress.
oh, okay.
So I added an Untapped icon for him. So I know he's pulling it in somehow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I like that. Does this stuff fit in with like the ideals of like indie? So where does IndieWeb and MicroPub? What's the difference?
So I guess the idea
One's
with
a
the
protocol.
IndieWeb is that like the data that you're creating online should be something that is in a place you control, where you also control the identity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Where
that's a
it's
philosophy.
bound by. That's
Okay.
like the general goal. And then how we actually do that, there's a bunch of different ways, right? And then also depending on what you want to do. So MicroPub is a protocol that apps can implement that will create content directly on your site
Mm-hmm.
and avoid the whole need of like using third-party services where you might be having your data live in somebody else's thing, and instead it just goes directly and creates posts on your site.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can use a nice app, but instead of having to then also sign up for somebody else's account on like Instagram, it actually just posts directly onto your site.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the most direct path to getting content onto your site. And then we also end up with these other ways of getting content onto your site, because of various reasons. Some of which are like silos have built good experiences, and we want to keep using those apps.
Mm-hmm.
So like Instagram, I do use Instagram because the app is good, and even though I technically have a way to post photos directly to my site, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still like using Instagram. And when I do use Instagram and create content in somebody else's silo, I want to be able to pull it back to my site. And like, so you're describing one way of find an API they have that exposes the data somehow, and then like run a cron job every now and then and like create
Right.
the pull it in.
That's a backup as opposed to
True.
That's like,
syndication.
Yeah.
Pesos was the terminology we have, which is you're publishing elsewhere, and then you bring it back onto your site.
Okay.
And that's,
I thought it was more pasta, which is more the archival.
well, if you're then like incorporating it into your sort of native posts, that's that reverse syndication, right? So
Okay.
the other version, which is less ideal, is like Twitter provides a full export of all your tweets as a web app, essentially, which is great, and you can like download it and put it on your domain somewhere. But that's not really like live updating, and it's just kind of like a one-time export, and it's also like in their own format, not really part of your website. So it's better than not having it, but it's not like it doesn't really live in your site with the rest of your stuff.
So it's not an import.
But anyway, so so you're describing like, so Untap has a JSON feed somewhere, and you can like pull that in and create posts on your site. What I've done with things like Own Your Gram, Own Your Swarm, and then there's one for Goodreads, right? It's Indie Book Club, right?
What? Sorry.
Imports Goodreads posts?
No, it does
Microsoft?
not.
Oh, it does not.
No.
Okay. But the idea with that is that there's this, I set up Own Your Swarm as a service, which does that, pulling the API so that you don't have to deal with it, and then it actually goes and makes micropub requests to create those posts on your site. The reason for that is because, and this is why so many people use Own Your Gram, micro.blog has micropub support, so you can use micropub apps with micro.blog. If you would then also use Instagram, Own Your Gram sits in the middle, and Manton didn't have to deal with Instagram's API. Manton doesn't have to care about Instagram's API and when they change stuff, because Manton implements micropub support. And now anybody can go and use Own Your Gram, and Own Your Gram deals with the Instagram mess and converts it into this normalized format and creates the photos on your site.
Okay. So for logging stuff through
So platform agnostic protocols.
right, gotcha. So logging stuff through micropub, is there a way to namespace custom post types? So if you want to,
We're at time,
Yeah.
by the way.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So namespace is not the right word. We avoid the namespace methodology. Instead, we try to just do everything natively. So the way it works is basically like we create a new post type in the main namespace of everything, and then figure out what that looks like, and then do it through micropub.
okay, so you would be open to somebody saying like, I want to post drinks to my site.
Yeah.
Let's create a
Let's
drink.
create a drink type, and then figure out how this is going to work, and then
So you may do it one way, he may do it another way. Eventually, everybody will standardize because you want to be
compatible.
you want to be able to consume it, and you don't want to have to worry. Well, this person's using it this way or this way. So I've gone back and changed my markup because I've discovered that the original one that I marked up experimentally didn't quite fit.
So books is exactly in this happening right now with books.
Okay.
Posting
Yeah.
reposts.
And where do you go to start those conversations?
Chat.
Chat, yeah.
Okay.
The chat is usually the place to start. Then we track the stuff.
So for
on the
reading
wiki.
specifically, like we have a read page on indieweb.org/read, and into like the example section, there's like I feel like the history because I have changed it multiple times through discussions and stuff.
Okay.
So
And
yeah.
even now we're thinking about changing it again. So
Okay.
You just start out by talking to people in the chat, and then eventually that discussion ends up on the wiki so that it's captured and archived and visible to other people and discoverable. And then eventually that can like work its way into the spec of microformats and the vocabulary, and then yeah. So it's like, but it's a very organic process.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank
And
you.
in order for it to get into the spec, there have to be enough people both publishing and consuming it.
Right,
So
right.
the criteria for it being adopted as a spec is people using it,
Okay.
which is always a good idea. But that's a good time for us to
Cool.
stop the feed.
Yes.
For
And
those of you guys here, this room will now close. Thank you for participating.
closing time.
This room will be open in a second. Please stand by. Nobody here. Doug, you're going to have to talk about yourself. I'm going to go find your facilitator who's not here. We have a session coming in.
Well, hello, other person. Here? Anybody here? Hello? I have no idea how to work this either. You there?
The pure itself doesn't really need anything. So all you need is Doug.
All we need is Doug.
Yeah, Doug
He's
is
here.
here.
Yeah, but does he say?
He can. Doug. Come, Doug. Here, Doug. Not you.
Right. Well, I have the sense that if 2 or 3 people show up, that
Yeah.
they're better off staying in the
And he has his microphone muted.
He's probably one of
Well, probably because they have the time. He was interested. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to come in here.
I think we will.
Okay.
Sorry, Doug.
Doug, this meeting has been canceled on account of
There being either 0 or 1 people in it.
that's insufficient interest. So we'll just leave the stream on and you can just watch afterwards. Anybody can
that.